I'm Stephanie Nealer, a Many Hands member since 2017, and today I'm visiting the Homeless Children's Playtime Project. In 2021, Many Hands members selected Playtime Project to receive our $100,000 impact grant in recognition of their commitment to supporting and empowering vulnerable children and their families through play. We'll talk about Playtime's work and how it has changed and expanded over the past year in response to the needs of the community. We're talking today with Jamila Larson, who's the Executive Director of the Homeless Children's Playtime Project, and Development Director Brandi Stanton. Jamila, give us a sense of what the Playtime Project is.
The Homeless Children's Playtime Project aims to cultivate resilience in children experiencing family homelessness by creating transformative play experiences. We partner with homeless shelters and transitional housing programs and community-based settings where children are experiencing housing insecurity to really create ongoing opportunities to benefit from the therapeutic properties of play.
And Brandi, how many people, how many places, who do you serve?
Yes, well, we serve families and children experiencing homelessness in the DC area, DC and Prince George's County, Maryland. Over 19 years, we've served approximately 8,000 children in the area.
Jamila, could you please give us an update on what's new at the Homeless Children's Playtime Project this year in 2022? And do you see any changes going forward as the world tries to move past the pandemic?
Absolutely. So we served 321 children last year. We plan to serve at least 350 children this year. And as we go into the third year of the pandemic, we really have made the pivot to make sure that we make in-person play available to all the children in our sites as we continue to expand to reach more children. So this year we've expanded to our second shelter partner site in Prince George's County. Now we serve the majority of Playtime participants are in the county. So it's really exciting for us to be forging new relationships with new families, new community partners in the DMV area. We've expanded our staff to be able to reach more children through non-traditional models. We piloted a school-based model this year. We'll be expanding to a couple of more school partners this upcoming school year because we know the majority of children experiencing family homelessness live doubled up in the community, not necessarily in the shelter system. So it really provides us a challenge to find where the children are and to figure out how to serve them where they live. For example, this summer we're partnering with Campfire USA and a housing complex where a lot of our families from the Prince George's County shelters have moved into. And so we're helping to run a summer camp this year for those children from many shelter sites and those who have moved into the housing complex. So it's really a dynamic time for Playtime as we're continuing to grow and expand so we can reach more children where they are, not just in the shelter settings.
So is it fair to say that at one point you were mostly involved with children in shelters and you're expanding beyond that now?
Absolutely. The pandemic has meant fewer families are willing to leave bad housing situations and enter institutions with strangers. The eviction moratorium has also meant fewer families coming into the shelter system, as well as changes in the way that the District of Columbia has served homeless families, investing more money in rapid rehousing vouchers to move folks more quickly through the system. So there's a lot of uncertainty as evictions continue, as families run out of their short-term subsidies and are looking for more housing in an increasingly unaffordable city. What we do know is there are fewer families in shelter in the district and more out in the community, which has really prompted our creative exploring to find where we can best serve.
Some people may consider Playtime's programs less important than programs that find houses for people or feed people. Do you ever get those questions? Why should we support you when you're just doing an add-on service?
We do get the question from time to time, why play, when we know that all the families that we serve need housing, and isn't housing the most important need? We are also acutely aware that child development milestones won't wait for our society to solve the affordable housing crisis. Child development happens every day. Homework assignments are due every day. Children are learning how to walk and talk every day. So we believe that playtime is the most essential human right that a child has. And of course, we are fighting for a family's right to also have the security and stability of housing. And that's why we partner with housing programs who are focused on that basic need while we focus on the child development needs. So it's a really beautiful partnership that we're able to have with the housing programs because it's formidable. Their jobs are formidable to help homeless families find housing that they can stay in and raise their families in. And during that moment of crisis, we know there are a variety of traumas that typically have brought families into the homeless service system. And those traumas are often best worked through the language of play for children. And we know that single parents who we serve need a break to address those challenges. So we're able to provide that break for parents, provide that oasis of therapeutic play opportunities for children, and help the housing provider do what they do best while we focus on what children need every day, and that is the opportunity to play.
As you say, you partner with these other organizations. You don't have your own spaces, you don't have your own offices, locations in these different locales around the community, around DC and around Prince George's County. So what do you see as your community, and how do you respond to that community? How do you take the interests and needs and views of the community? How do you incorporate that into your operations and your decision making?
Mm-hmm. So the 4 shelter partners that we are currently working with in the district and the 2 shelter partners we're working with in Prince George's County have different approaches to helping our families weather the storm of homelessness and establish housing in the community. Some of them are domestic violence shelters, some of them are transitional housing programs for young moms. One of them is in a hotel setting. So there really is a great deal of variety of communities where we operate, and we value having strong partnerships with those housing providers. And of course, the most important relationship is that we have with each family. And we don't take it lightly that parents trust us with their child. And parents know that we love and respect and care for their families. It's amazing to me, even though I don't have relationships with the current families that we serve, how much goodwill I experience just by coming in from Playtime. Our families have such strong relationships with our staff and with our volunteers who come every single week to provide them that free respite and give their children a sense of joy even amidst their crisis situation. So we're really fortunate to have earned the trust of the parents that we serve and to have such bonds with the children that we serve, from infants through preteens. It's amazing how our staff and our social work interns and our volunteers are able to adapt to meet the special needs of many of the children we serve. It's not unusual for us to have a child with autism in several of our sites. And one recent example is a 7-year-old who experiences a lot of sensory needs that are really triggered by the chaos of a congregate care type environment. So one of our long-term volunteers, Jason, who's been with us at DC General and the hotel shelter sites, had an extra pair of noise blocking headphones that he brought into site. And our curriculum and impact specialist created a sensory bin for him. So he'd have an activity that he could focus on that would be developmentally appropriate for his needs. Because without those tools, he was experiencing a lot of triggers in the joyful noise of playtime and would lash out at other kids, push toddlers, hit his peers. And it was the most beautiful sight to be able to see that when these headphones and the sensory bin and a one-on-one volunteer was provided to him, he smiled, he engaged, he had such a beautiful time at playtime. And imagine how his mom felt coming to pick him up, knowing that we were able to accommodate his special needs, and how much the other kids are able to see, yes, playtime is for everybody. We really want to make sure that there's room for everyone, regardless of what each child's needs are. We don't get case files for the children that we serve. Children express their special needs through play, and it's a real honor to be able to give our parents a break and to give our kids what they need as kind of a rest stop amidst the storm of homelessness.
So you have dedicated staff and volunteers at individual sites, and so that the parents and the children at those places get to know those volunteers and staff. Do the parents or other people at those locations come up with suggestions or ideas of how your program can be adjusted?
Yes, absolutely. Lately, we've been receiving a lot of requests from families who are moving out and feeling ill-equipped to establish their households. And in many cases, the shelter partners are able to partner with the district or the county to provide larger furniture items eventually. But a lot of those smaller items like step stools, shower curtains, toys, books, strollers, high chairs, families go without. And so when we had a young man at one of our shelter sites who was a survivor of gun violence that left him paralyzed in a wheelchair, we had become really close to the family over the 9 months, as this parent was also parenting a toddler and was faced with moving into her own apartment all by herself. She was very excited, but felt overwhelmed. No single parent should move by themselves. And we rallied our volunteers and neighbors to help collect items on her wish list that the shelter was not able to provide. And we literally helped her move that weekend and helped put together the beds and put together a balcony protector so the kids wouldn't fall through the slats in the balcony in the housing complex, and really rallied to make sure that she had the tools that she needed to raise her kids in her apartment. Because although it's exciting when a family moves, it's overwhelming, and we have seen firsthand how families lose a sense of community when they're there. All of a sudden they have to cook not just 3 meals a day, but snacks for their children, prepare everything. They don't have their case manager down the hall to ask for diapers. They're on their own. So those relationships with families have really given us the opportunity to explore how to expand our model to provide more move-out support. And through that, we learned, oh, she needs summer camp for her son. How do we find a wheelchair accessible summer camp that can help with his toileting needs? So we jumped into action with our social work interns to help make that possible and help enroll mom and enroll the young man into summer camp. So we're really excited to explore how we can extend the reach of Playtime to make sure that our families have a soft landing when they move and are connected to those support services when they exit. So that's kind of a new arm of our program, as we're partnering with our partner shelter agencies to really understand what are the missing pieces, because we don't want our children to fall through the cracks after they leave shelter.
I just wanted to add, I think Playtime has always gone to where the families are living their lives. So that can sometimes be the shelters, but also where out in the community, right? So we've partnered with our shelter site partners. We've done pop-up events at housing organizations and schools. We're bringing in resource partners like DC Central Kitchen or the diaper bank. We bring in organizations to program like Capitol Hill Arts Workshop or, partnering with Campfire USA for this camp. It's a community effort because we're meeting families out in the community, and these families are part of our community. And part of what we're doing, I think, is play equity for everyone in the community, and that includes Playtime families. So it takes a lot of partnerships.
The Homeless Children's Playtime Project was the recipient of a Many Hands Impact Grant last year, right?
Yes. Amazing.
And you had applied for our grants in previous years. So you're familiar with our grant making process and the grant application process. What differentiates the Many Hands grant process from other grant making organizations?
I would definitely say it's unique in a couple of different ways. I do think the application process is on the sort of intense side of the spectrum. It's a lot of money, so I do understand that. It's very detailed application. There's the site visit, the finalist requirements with videos and things like that. So it is intense, but it's also probably one of my most, if not the most, supportive, professional, and organized funder experience that I've had throughout the entire process, through the application through today. I would say everything just really clearly communicated with the idea of supporting us as a grantee. Really impressive efforts by the organization to reach out and spread information about the nonprofits and the issues that they are working on and the needs of the people that they serve. That's just really priceless dissemination of information on the important issues that we're working on. I also think you're unique for the low requirements of grantees. Maybe it's an intense application process, but then on the grantee side of things, I think Many Hands is very attentive to maybe our capacity limitations and what sort of would be the most, the smoothest, sort of least burdensome way of sharing information as a grantee and reporting and things like that. So I've really appreciated that.
How does the Many Hands grant make a difference, in particular when it is for general operating funds as opposed to for a particular project or program?
Absolutely. General operating funds are so important to nonprofits in general, and certainly to Playtime, maybe especially with Playtime, because we are always responding and adapting to a system that's outside our control. The DC housing system makes decisions, obviously, about families that we, cannot take a part in and have to adapt to. So to have general operating money to be able to flex like that is so important. An example would be last year we had a very small number of children due to the pandemic and other things that the city was doing. A very small number of children at one of our sites called the Brooks. And so what we needed to do was shift our site manager there to other sites where we were having more children and just be sort of flexible with her time. On an unrestricted grant, that's just fine. We can do that. We're able to do that. On a restricted grant that's, let's say, restricted to that Brooks site, we would have to ask permission to shift funds away from that site manager salary to something else that we need, and probably we're still limited to keep it at that site. It would, if it was another site that needed more, we couldn't shift the money. It certainly makes a big difference to have higher grant award amounts for small organizations, and it's certainly our particular timing in 2021 as a grantee. It created some security during COVID to have a nice grant award that would help carry us through some scary times.
It's amazing how many of our peer organizations can't start a site until they have dedicated funds for that particular site. Whereas, as Brandi mentioned, we are able to be uniquely nimble to really pivot quickly. Even with our summer camp partner, who's pretty restricted in where and who and how many folks they serve and how many they hire, we can make those decisions more quickly to respond to the changing needs. The landscape is changing beneath our feet so quickly, and it's wonderful to be able to hop in and out of DC, in and out of Prince George's County, not waiting a year for dedicated funding to come through, but really going where we're needed the most, and growing based on the need, not based on our funding restrictions. So Many Hands truly infused our budget with that level of flexibility to make sure that we could respond more quickly as needs change.